All right, welcome to the Missouri Healthy Schools Podcast Live. My name is Guy Danhoff, and we have our very first kickoff for our live podcast. Is we're going to talk on wellness in winter, and it's going to be our first podcast of 2025. And I'm also joined with Jimmy Hale, and Jimmy, this is going to get real exciting as we're going to be talking about the winter blues. Is there any other way to say that?
I don't know. I think you summed it up pretty good there, Guy. Definitely excited to be here with you. We've got an amazing panel of experts from throughout the state that are going to be joining us. So, 2025, here we go.
All right. So with that, why don't you talk to us about a really interesting topic, which is going to be looking at the 8 dimensions of wellness.
Yeah, so the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA for short, defined 8 different dimensions of wellness. And with our panel of experts that we brought in to talk about wellness in winter, we are going to cover a lot of these different topics. And so what I wanted to do is touch briefly on what those different dimensions are, just so our listeners can kind of understand as before we start to dive into it, what exactly we're going to be talking about.
So as we look at these dimensions, we see 8 of them. So what are we referring to as we start to look at this framework?
Yeah, so one of the dimensions is emotional wellness. We see this in movies. Pixar puts out some interesting stuff with emotions and whatnot. But it's when a person can cope with the stressors of life effectively, and they have positive self-regard or self-esteem and self-concept, and they're able to create and maintain satisfying relationships. And then we start to delve into some of the other dimensions like financial wellness, which I don't know about you, Guy, but definitely during the winter months, during the holidays, it can be particularly challenging. We start to experience, some issues with taxes being due at the end of the year, doctor visits for illnesses, and of course all the holidays that we have to navigate. So financial wellness can be challenging.
Speaking of that, there's also, we'll talk tonight about the school challenges and just the additional cost of snow removal, having to have the heat on a lot more, how much you're spending on de-icing the school. There's so much that's gone into it. I know that at my school, the university that I'm at, we were off school 3 days out of the 5 days just 2 weeks ago. And there's some schools that just started, and it presents some challenges, which some of our experts are going to address tonight.
Yeah, definitely one of those big challenges is the social wellness dimension.
Yep.
Social wellness is really that sense of connection and belonging that all people have. It's your system of people around you who provide support when you really need it, when times get tough. And this is a very powerful dimension.
Well, it is. So I think what we're going to do now, Jimmy, is bring on our panel of experts. And we're bringing Dr. Danhoff Rector. Let's bring in Hannah Lively, Travana, all the way from Kansas City. We got Katie, Melissa, and Don. Let's make sure I didn't miss anybody. There we go. All right, I'm going to bring them all on the screen. Here we go. There you go. Well, welcome. All right. So we're doing something, Jimmy, we've never done before, and we're going to have the panel on live because we want to be able to give you as much information as possible. And yes, as we always promise at Missouri Healthy Schools, and that's going to be resources. All right. So with that being said, let's dive in. And so the first question is going to go to Dr. Daniel Rector. and then you can introduce yourself, and then we'll give you your question.
All right. So my name is Daniel Rector, and I'm the Director of Student Services for Fulton Public Schools. Fulton is a school district in Missouri. It's kind of what we call like on the fringes. It's like close to Columbia, close to Jeff City, close to Mexico, but not quite any of those. We're nestled in a town of about 12,000 people. We have a student population PK through 12, right around about 2,300. And so it's a little bit about us. And then from there, I think one of the things that we wanted to talk about, just kind of as experts leading into this, is whenever we're thinking about wellness in the winter and how are we supporting our students, like what are the kind of impacts that we're trying to forecast that we want to try to mitigate. Whenever we're in the winter, one of the biggest things that typically happens within a school district is we go on this holiday break period. And so, you know, we've got these periods and points where we've got these trusted adults that are connecting, building great relationships with kids, and then we suddenly go on hiatus for 2 weeks, or in our case, we went on hiatus for 3 weeks because of the snow. And then, so what are we trying to prevent? What are we trying to do during that time? Because what we know to be true is that whenever those students are away from that kind of a support network, there's increased likelihood that they might fall into different kind of struggles, whether it be from, you know, the family financial state. It could be things where they're suddenly feeling more isolated. Their friend group is at school and they no longer have access to those friends groups, or, right, you know, our parents out working because that's what they're doing during the day. And now the students who are normally at school are at home. What are all of those things? And so when I think about kind of one of the baseline things that we're doing or trying to do as a school district is stay connected to the students, pre-plan with them, pre-plan with their families. So I'm thinking about even as a school district, we run school markets and like personal care or care closets, so things like hygiene, clothing, and stuff like that. In preparation for those extended breaks, we sit down with the students, we sit down with the families and go, okay, where are you at? Like, right, do you got access to food coming into this holiday? If not, can we go ahead and set an appointment where mom, dad, guardian, whoever is coming in and kind of shopping through our school market to make sure that they've got the supplies and the food that they need going into that extended break. Beyond that, kind of like that social connection piece, most of our school personnel, whether it be a counselor, social worker, or someone, is taking time, even during that break, and reaching out to the student and that family, whether it be a phone call, whether it be sending a postcard, an email, whatever it is, just to kind of check in with them. If nothing else, not even a two-way dialogue per se, but just a note from the school going, hey, thinking about you, really miss you, can't wait to see you whenever we come back. I think a lot of those things, whenever we're kind of talking about those impacts that we're seeing with kiddos, all of those are trying to mitigate that, even if something does happen over the break or they are isolated, that they know that it's just a few more days until they come back, and then the supports are kind of in place and ready to go back.
I tell you what, Daniel, there's a lot to think there, and I really like how you addressed some issues with isolation. Yeah, it's a pretty big thing. So now we're going to bring on Hannah. Hannah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Hannah Lavelli. So I'm the Youth Services Coordinator with the Department of Mental Health, Division of Behavioral Health. So I work in all things youth across mental health and substance use.
So with that, we're going to continue discussion that Daniel just talked about. So how do we address social isolation that impacts youth?
Absolutely. So social isolation, like Dr. Rector said, is, a huge concern around kiddos, especially. The U.S. Surgeon General actually released a report about it in 2023, just showing, that loneliness, social isolation in childhood, that actually increases the risk of depression, anxiety, self-harm, and even suicidal ideation as kiddos grow up. So it's important to surround them as much as we can, especially when they do experience those extended times from school. Really, when I think about this, I kind of think of two different directions to go. So you can go kind of the informal direction. So we all know, kiddos adore their social media. And there is, kind of that continuum of social media, how it can be helpful and harmful. So when I think of this, I think kind of the informal route is making sure that we have that plan for kiddos to use social media to interact with their friends during this period, but not to use it for it to become an issue or to become, kind of overbearing on their lives. But also, sometimes I know that's hard, especially when, mom and dad have to go to work still and kiddos are snowed in all day. What do you do then at that point? Really, those informal methods, just seeing if we can get some FaceTime. Can mom and dad come home and have a sit-down dinner with them? Can we have game night? Can we have something that just gives them that face-to-face interaction? I really think that's the best, informal route. Formal routes, definitely. I mean, our mental health providers in Missouri are so good about trying to interact with kiddos and their families to support the whole family. And social isolation and loneliness is something they can help with through peers, through different therapy services and whatnot. So it's a good reason to get connected, even if you think, hey, this isn't overtaking yet. If we can get in front of it, if we can say, hey, if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling isolated, I can do X, Y, Z to prevent that or help stem that. That's a great way to go about it.
Absolutely. I really like the fact you brought up family game night. I have a 19-year-old daughter in college, and because of those snow days, we actually had 2 days back to back where we had family games for about 3-4 hours. So
Yes.
it's really interesting you say that, and it does make a difference. It brings everyone closer. You're having fun. Of course, it's always fun when dad beats daughter in these games like Wicked Monopoly.
Absolutely.
But no, but you truly bring up a great point. With that, let's turn it to Donna. Donna, could you introduce yourself?
I sure can. Good evening, everyone. I'm Donna Garcia, and I am the Associate Director of Operations for ParentLink and also SchoolLink. So this is an outreach organization that is under the College of Education and Human Development, under the University of Missouri, under Mizzou. And so we actually work with all citizens in the state of Missouri. That is our goal. And our goal is to maintain healthy families, help to create healthy families in whatever way necessary, have thriving children and responsive developmental environments. And so I like to consider ParentLink and SchoolLink as a connector.
Yep.
We are offering expert problem solving support, helpful research-based information, and we help our families in Missouri get connected to services and supports. So to meet our families wherever they are. And we also follow up to make sure that their needs have been met. And we continue to work with them until their needs are met. So, we know so often, we make phone calls to various places and all we get is that automated voice, which I find to be very irritating, especially if, you need some help, you want to talk to somebody. You need to know that somebody is understanding and can help you to problem solve with whatever that situation may be. And so I think that's one of the things that ParentLink does very well in SchoolLink is that voice is there, that caring person is there. And our services include, maternal and child health, warm line, Kin for Kids. So we work a lot with kinship caregivers. It could be grandparents raising children or other relatives. We have an access navigation system of care. We do child development screenings. We oversee Family Fun Fest. We work with incarcerated parents. We have support for kinship caregivers. We have our Thriving Military Families program.
Wow.
And one of our latest programs is SchoolLink, where we work with school professionals to offer support wherever school professionals need it. And that's everybody from the custodian and the cafeteria worker to the teachers and the principals and superintendents, whomever needs support.
Absolutely. And we're going to bring you on again so you can give those links towards the end of the broadcast. How's that sound?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, I love the advancements you all continue to do with SchoolLink, ParentLink, and just it's wonderful.
And
Now
then
we're going to go to Kansas City. What's out in Kansas City?
Hello.
Alexander Tony.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I love it. So my name is Trevonna Alexander Tony. I am the Director of Behavioral Health with Kansas City Public Schools. I'm centered in the urban core of Kansas City, Missouri. We have about 15,000 students, and I am part of the Department of Student Services, where I oversee the work of our licensed clinicians that serve our students in each of our 32 school sites.
All right. So what I'd like you to unpack for us is the 3 pillars of trauma-informed schools.
Absolutely. It's one of the things I enjoy doing most on a daily basis. So when we talk about trauma-informed schools, Kansas City Public Schools has dedicated itself to becoming a model trauma-informed school district. And what that means is that we want to be sensitive to everything that impacts our students and our staff, because our staff are as important as our students. Without our staff, we aren't able to meet the needs of our students. When we think about trauma-informed schools, there's really 3 pillars that guides this work. And the first is safety. When we think about safety, we're talking about emotional, social, physical, and environmental safety. When our students step foot into their learning environments, we want them to not have to worry about the stressors that they experience in their homes, possibly, or in their communities, or in any other settings outside of our schools. We want our schools to feel and be that safe space for them, where they can focus on being their best selves and, of course, focus on their academics. But in order to do that, they have to focus on their own well-being so that they can focus on those things. The next is connections and developing healthy relationships. We all know the importance of having one healthy relationship between an adult and a child and how that impacts and influences a youth's life. The trauma-informed schools really focuses on building those relationships with students, student to student, also student to staff, and also student to teacher. So healthy relationships are really a driver of change. And when individuals feel supported and connected to the individuals that are in their settings, then they are more socially and emotionally well. And then the last pillar is managing emotions. So we know that in order to make good decisions, students have to, 1, be able to identify what they are feeling, how it presents in their body, how it presents in their minds, and then they have to 2, be able to name it. When you are safe enough to be able to identify when I am feeling overwhelmed, worry, fear, frustration, I can name that because I know what's happening in my body. If I'm getting pulsations in my hands, if my heart is beating fast, if my palms begin to sweat, if my tempo begins to throb, and I can explain that, and then I can identify that feeling or my bodily response to a feeling word, then we are making progress. That means that we're becoming responsible enough to know that when we are experiencing big feelings that are overwhelming, and feelings that lead to behaviors that we may not ordinarily demonstrate. And so when we think about trauma-informed schools, those are the 3 pillars that really we're focusing on that guides our work.
That's outstanding. And then talk to us about now the moving to change.
Yes. So we've identified those 3 pillars and we're focused on them. So our next step was to just identify a framework to help guide our work. How do we embed what specific factors of these 3 pillars do we focus on? And what does that look like in practice? So we've adopted the Missouri model for trauma-informed schools. And we adopted this model in 2019. And it really guides our work in becoming and maintaining and strengthening how we respond to our students and staff who have experienced or experiencing trauma or traumatic experiences or events, and also just how we help them cope and manage those. The Missouri model has 12 indicators, and tonight, Guy, I'm not going through all 12 of them, so you all can thank me for that later, but I will focus on a couple of them. The first one is really one that really focuses on our students and how we really help them, provide them education about trauma, how it impacts them so they can identify it and name it. And then we also provide them strategies, coping and calming strategies that calms their minds and their bodies. And then we give them, and we help our educators in the learning environment, give them opportunities to demonstrate the strategies that they have learned when they're experiencing dysregulation or overwhelming feelings.
All right. So with that, let's continue on this discussion. And what are we looking at here?
So this is indicator number 3 of the Missouri model. And as you can see, it's really student focused. It states that in one of the strategies of becoming a model trauma-informed school is ensuring that we are providing students with age-appropriate information about trauma, stress, how it impacts them, strategies and tools, and giving them opportunities to use them. So this is what I was just saying a moment ago. This is a key factor in everything that we do. We have been intentional in providing learning opportunities for our staff about trauma and how to engage our students in a trauma responsive way. And then also what we do as a tier 1 approach, tier 2 and tier 3, and we'll get into that later. But we provide students with strategies. Students, when they are experiencing these things, these big emotions, these big feelings, this behavior that they sometimes feel that they can't control, we provide them strategies to help them calm themselves down. And then we give them opportunities to practice it in one-on-one and in group settings, but also in real time. So there are push-in interventions that are provided to help students redirect and practice these strategies in real time that really focuses to help mental, social, and emotional well-being.
All right. Well, we're not done. So let's continue. And what's the rest of the model? What's step 4?
So indicator number 4 is really focusing on our staff, because we know without self-regulation, there can be no co-regulation, right? So if we have students who are presenting with dysregulation and big feelings, and we are expecting our staff to respond in a way that communicates safety and maintaining that strong connection that educator has with that student, so that student feels safe enough in the learning environment, we have to also support our staff in their well-being and their self-care efforts. So as a district, we not only prioritize the well-being, social and emotional well-being of our students, but also of our staff. So we've been intentional to create safe spaces for our staff, where they can go and calm their minds and their bodies so that they can make it throughout the day. We have spaces that are called Zen dens or breathe rooms, where we have invested in massage chairs and aromatherapy for our staff so that they can rejuvenate and embrace and connect in their own well-being, so that they can show up and be what we need for our students, but more importantly, for themselves, because they are individuals and they are humans who experience stressors outside of the workplace and inside of the workplace, just like we all do, right? And so this model, what I really love about it's inclusive. It doesn't let us ignore the fact that we have to feed in and invest in those that are there to help our students with their social and emotional well-being as well.
So, Trevana, I just want to pause for a second. What was really interesting, like when COVID hit, so much focus was always on the students.
Yes.
But once the second strand hit, and I want to say that it was Melissa who was going to speak next, then the focus went to teachers and admins.
Yes.
And it's really interesting, all the work that you and certainly everyone who's on this panel tonight, how much is going to taking care of teachers, administrators, school staff, etc. It's so huge. So I really appreciate you talking about this.
Thank you.
All right, let's continue. Here we go.
And I think lastly, guys, these are just some of the things and ways that KCPS is investing in our staff. We have a wellness committee that's solely focused on What is it that our staff need, and how can we best provide that to them that's inclusive and has educators on that committee? We have our KCPS Plus app that provides a calendar of wellness events and activities that our staff can participate in. You can sign up for mindful moments at any point of the day that's convenient for you, where you can just take a moment and practice some of those strategies. We have walking with the superintendent, a good way to build relationship while also getting your wellness in, right? That physical activity directly correlates to your mental wellness. And so this is just one to share. These are just some of the ways and strategies and tools that we are equipping our staff with to help them, maintain their mental wellness and their social emotional well-being.
So let me ask you this follow-up question. What would you recommend to school districts that have just looked at that? What would be some tips you have for them to start to adopt something like that?
Absolutely. Well, so first thing, I'm a girl who's big on implementation science, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to develop and implement something that's going to impact the population, you need to bring them to the table.
Yep.
So I would definitely start with just engaging. Oftentimes we think we know what they want, what they need, and what we have to do is engage them to get their voice and their feedback. But the first step is just to start, get some information, get some feedback from them. What is it? Assess where they are, how they're taken care of, where would they rate they are in their well-being, and what type of things would they like to see. Then from there, develop a committee that's inclusive of those educators so their voice is present and centered at the table, and then identify those action items and make movement from there.
Absolutely. Daniel, let's bring you on to follow up this thought. What's some ideas you have?
So 100% everything that Trayvon has said, like right there, like let the teachers kind of drive, like they're the best people that know what it is they need. But
Yep.
also in thinking about districts of varying resource size. And so like some things may not be replicable across different environments because the resources are different. And so one of the things that I would be curious about for districts to potentially explore, a lot of us, I'm pretty sure most of us have some type of a district provided insurance program. And what I've seen, at least from the course of the past couple of years, is more and more focus on mental health supports, mental health awareness, whether that be through, I think of like the district emergency, the EAPs that they have out there, the emergency action things that are like, I'm having a crisis moment, I need support, someone to talk to, those things.
Right.
But also, even more so, a shift towards promotion of wellness.
Yeah.
And so, I'm not promoting anything. My district uses Cigna as our insurance thing, and we've got like the Cigna app that we go through, and
Right.
it does some of those things that Trayvon was talking about. Like we have challenges, like get your steps in, so kind of like that exercise, or like let's get your water intake in because water is really important. Like, are you watching what you're eating?
Right.
Have you made 2 connections with 2 people? And so it's highlighting opportunities to be able to bring those things to the forefront for you, like bringing it to your attention, your awareness, because if you don't have it, it's prompting you to do those. It's doing some things where you might be able to interact with people in team environments. And then the other thing, at least from ours, is that when you complete these challenges, you then get points. You accumulate so many points, you get some money. Who doesn't like money? Like, just kind of thinking about whenever you're looking at those things, it may not always necessarily be creating something new. It may be connecting to existing resources.
Right.
So kind of bridging those 2 things. What do the people need? What do we already have? So then that way we're not recreating, duplicating, and things like that.
Well, we have our first live comments. Oh, this is cool. Yes, assisting the staff with their trauma is so important. So if you're watching right now on YouTube, you can be watching on MHS or Shape America. You can type your comments in and we'll bring them in live. If you have a comment or a question, just send it in. All right, with that, let's bring in our next guest. And here we go. And now we're going to bring in the researcher, Dr. Melissa Morris.
Thank you so much, Guy, and good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Maris. I'm a research consultant with the Assessment Resource Center. We're an outreach and engagement unit with the University of Missouri, also associated with the College of Education and Human Development. That was a whole lot of words, but it has been my absolute delight to do a lot of work statewide with schools around school-based mental health for the last 15, 16 years, working with many of the people who are on the screen tonight, which is really fun. And just want to echo what our friends who are in Kansas City Public and Fulton just shared in terms of the value of bringing people to the table. So if people are involved in something, it's best to get their input right at the start. And then also this idea of this quality improvement cycle, right? So let's look at what we're doing, what's working, what's not. Let's shift something and then continue to look at it over time and see what's working and see what's not. And when I think about, I see on the screen attendance, a great example of one of the areas where so many districts are focusing their efforts to really engage not just young people, but also families to ensure that teachers and staff, all professional staff, are showing up, and not just showing up, but showing up prepared and ready to do the job at hand. For young people, that's as a student for learning, and for teachers, that's teaching. But this idea that we're really focusing on the school community, and that's everybody in the school. And it really does take everybody in the school to make this work. And so I think in terms of wellness as a strategy, I think just knowing that it is a strategy, when we feel better, we are more likely to want to and then be successful in going to work and going to school and doing the things that we're meant to be doing. I also think with those words on the screen of wellness and attendance, just connecting the dots across all of the things we're talking about. I think a lot of times when we think about wellness or talk about it, we're thinking about, are we drinking enough water? Are we getting our steps in? How are we eating? And those are really important considerations to take into account. But also what Daniel was sharing in terms of interacting with one another. And that's, I think, really part of the key message with attendance is for young people to benefit from all of this good work that's happening at schools, things that young people and adults are all working together to advance in this school community. They have to be there, right? And so I think that's the part of the message for all parents and caregivers is the adults who work in schools want young people to come to school. And that is so delightful, right? That we want everybody to be in school so they can participate in that school community and continue to benefit in all these ways that we've already heard about from our friends here tonight.
Great points. Melissa, we're bringing you back because you are the resource queen.
Thank you. I will take that. I want a little a crown.
All right, no problem. Now let's bring up Katie. Katie, could you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Katie Epema. I am the Director of School-Based Mental Health for the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which oversees a number of different things. Primarily, I oversee the Trauma-Informed Schools Initiative, so great to hear about that tonight with Travana, Youth Suicide Awareness and Prevention, so some of those really tough things we have going on sometimes, and also supporting school social workers.
All right, your question is, can you break down the Missouri framework for school-based mental health?
Absolutely. So this is a really exciting new thing that will be coming out later this spring, and you're going to get a little sneak peek of it tonight. But to kind of lay the groundwork for our Missouri framework for school-based mental health, I just want us to think, when you hear the word mental health, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Often it's mental illness, but we really want to consider mental health as that continuum that includes wellness. So we're thinking about the emotional, psychological, and social well-being. We know from what we've heard tonight and other things that good mental health for both the students and the staff is really central to having those safe and healthy school communities, which we know we have to improve learning and promote student success. So when we're talking about what is school-based mental health, we're including that focus on wellness. So school-based mental health is that comprehensive continuum of support, which is facilitated in schools, that's designed to promote the well-being of that school community, as well as mitigate the impact of those behavioral health challenges. So Our school-based mental health section at DESE is newer. We're just a little over 2 years old, and our primary focus has been to work on developing this Missouri framework for school-based mental health. As I said, it will be released later this spring. We're giving the sneak peek tonight. But one of the most exciting things I think about this framework goes to some of what Travana talked about. It's developed in collaboration with the school-based mental health professionals who are working in the field and doing the work. Sometimes we hear the phrase, nothing about us without us. So we had representatives from the Missouri Association of School Nurses, the Missouri Association of School Psychologists, Missouri School Counselor Association, and the School Social Workers Association of Missouri, as well as the Department of Health and Senior Services, Department of Mental Health, and DESE providing input all together into this document. So if you want to pop that little image up on the screen again, Guy, I'll kind of walk you through what it looks like. I know it's a little small. You'll get a pretty one once we've got that out to the public. But really down on the bottom, the framework, the foundation of this framework is comprised of people and partnerships. We know those relationships are critical. Those are those two rectangles there on the base underneath the triangle. That foundation is just really of the utmost importance for us to be able to provide the rest of that multi-tiered system of support that's built upon it. So that system, the triangle, includes practices and processes that have a whole continuum of supports, starting with those universal supports. Sometimes they're called tier 1 services that are for all students. Those are the school-wide practices that promote wellness and well-being among the entire student population. So focusing on things like fostering healthy development, building students' competencies to cope with common stressors and circumstances. There are those supports that promote mental health, that positive school climate, that positive youth development. And then you'll see there's also tier 2 and tier 3 as part of that continuum of systems of support. Those are for smaller groups of students who might need some additional supports to complement those universal supports. On the broader context, you can see we have some arrows going around the triangle. School-based mental health definitely includes that continuous quality improvement process we've heard about a couple times. Promoting wellness is ongoing. And the broader context for this also includes the primary purpose of this framework, aligning resources and bringing awareness to the resources that exist. So excited we're hearing about more of those tonight. And also shows just how important that trauma-informed approach and utilizing best practices are, both in how this framework was conceptualized and how it will be implemented. So one of those very, very foundational pieces, the one there on the bottom left, is professional development and support for a healthy workforce. When we're talking about a healthy workforce, we're meaning a well-supported staff that includes every single school employee in the school community, from teachers, bus drivers, school administrators, because we know that caring for the health and well-being of all school staff is fundamental to advancing that wellness in our school communities. So we know this, right? We know that emotional and mental well-being of those who work with children directly impacts our ability to create that positive learning environment, but we're not always so great at doing it. It can be a challenge for us to really prioritize our well-being. One great resource that we like to share is the Teach Well program that was developed by the Missouri Department of Mental Health. This is a program designed specifically for those working in schools, and it offers what they would like to call bite-sized professional development. They have over 60 short courses that can be completed in less than 5 minutes, most of them probably 2 to 3 minutes, and more than 60. So there's topics like what's information about resources we might find helpful, like the Suicide Prevention and 988 Guide for Schools. Or what are tips to support students through specific challenges like pet loss? Or give me some practices I can use, such as breathing or grounding exercises, and then strategies to promote emotional resilience, prevent burnout. There's a whole variety of wonderful ones there. And the cool thing is you can access those anytime through the Department of Mental Health Content Hub. So you can, share them when you want to look at a specific topic. Or you can sign up through their website to have them email or text you a link to one every couple weeks. And it's just fun to see what pops up there and what might be most helpful.
Katie, first of all, thank you. Love the new framework. What data did you use to drive this initiative?
And I'm going to let anybody else who wants to pop on who's worked. Dr. Melissa Maris has been instrumental in helping kind of facilitate this process. But since our section is newer, it's about what is there. And we started with looking at what are the national best practices in school-based mental health. And then we do what we finally term Missourifying them. So like what from the national best practices makes sense in the context of Missouri. So having that general framework, but leaving it open enough that then local education agencies can say, okay, in our particular context, how can we apply this and make this work? Because we know every district, every charter school, it's going to look different. And we want to leave that flexibility.
That's excellent. And Katie, wow. Yeah, and obviously, Dr. Maris, you always have the data. All right, so with that, we know the complexities can occur during the middle winter months, especially as we talked about financial stressors related to the holiday, end of year bills, social isolation. Certainly, I like to call it the winter blues, can contribute to teachers' ability to perform optimally. And what I'd like to do is, Daniel, bring you back on and address the question, what strategies can schools use to systematically support our teachers' social and emotional well-being?
For sure. I think looking back at what kind of resources do you already have in existence, number one of those things, kind of for sure I like to look at things in kind of like an ebb and flow. So at the beginning of the year, we focus a lot of time, energy, and effort in setting our friends up, our teachers, our staff, our students, everyone in the community up for success. And then just by the natural progression, things start going, we tend to lose focus a little bit. And so as you're thinking about from a school district perspective, going into these months, just like what we were talking about and kind of how I mentioned at the beginning, where we do our touch-ins with our students, making sure that they're set up for success, how are we bringing these things to the forefront and making them conversation starters? Thinking about December, January faculty meetings. Where are you having, if you don't already have a system of wellness moments or something like that, how can you ingrain those into the vibrancy of your community? How can you provide opportunities of bringing out some of those resources that Katie was just talking about, like the Teach Well moment, like just in as a principal, director, or whoever, whenever you're emailing out communications to your staff, how is that a cornerstone or a focus or embedded within it? Thinking through those systems, those opportunities to be able to bring those back. The other thing that I like to think about too is everything, and Dr. Maris would say this, we've done several presentations, is at this point in time in the year, it should never be about creating something new, introducing something new. The idea is looking back at your universal. So as a school district, whenever you're looking at what do you already have in place, rather than creating new, how are you dusting it off? How are you amping it up? Thinking about you're going back to your tier one, your universal, your foundation, and then you're beefing up a piece of that, a component of it. If we know that adults are struggling, how are we increasing the mental health professionals in our building, their visibility, their ability to make connections, their ability to check in with these adults, rather than trying to create a new system around it, just amping up and solidifying what we already have in place.
Makes perfect sense. With that, let's take it to the next level. Trevon, let's bring you back. And let's have you address this tiered approach that was just talked about. And so here's your slide.
So thanks so much. Katie kind of set me up really nicely here with the new updated infographic. I have the current outdated infographic, but nevertheless, it kind of shows how we as a school district use the multi-tiered support system to meet the comprehensive needs of our students. So really what this is there's different tiered levels of intervention. There's tier one, which every single student in your school district receives. That is the welcome into the building to set the culture and climate. There are tier twos that everyone doesn't get. So everyone gets tier one. There are some students that need a little more help to maintain their social or emotional wellness. It may be one-to-one check-ins. It may be small groups to help them process and given opportunities to practice the new coping skills that we've provided to them. And then there's tier 3, which are should be the smallest population of students who really need intensive one-to-one intervention, therapy, community referral. And so Kansas City Public Schools has adopted this multi-tiered system of support to meet the comprehensive needs of our students. To assist us with doing this, we have identified and we have support, what we call teams of support at each school building that provides each level of support. So if a student comes to school hungry one day and just, needs a snack, then there's a food pantry that every student has access to that food pantry. And that's a tier 1 type of intervention. If there are anything a student needs, we have individuals to provide that intervention in the school. Now, what we've done to really work collaboratively and, using my SHAPE language is to kind of strengthen our teaming approach is we've kind of developed these systems of referrals that really identifies the reason for referral for a student. It identifies what tier that need falls into. So then we can identify the support person at the school that's most appropriate to meet that student's needs. And so utilizing this multi-tier system of support, we are able to meet the needs of multiple students utilizing our teaming approaches, utilizing our collaborations within the school amongst the tiered level interventions, and also finally, but absolutely not least, utilizing our community partners, because we know as a school system, regardless of how many individuals we have in that school, it's most likely never going to be enough to meet the needs. So we have to rely on our community partners to meet the ongoing needs of our students as well, so that they are providing those wraparound support services during the times when, school is out for the winter break. And as our students transition from their elementary school to their secondary middle school feeder zone, that those one thing that will remain consistent is those community supports and wraparound services. So utilizing this tiered approach really helps us maximize the supports we have in the building internally and externally within our communities.
That's just outstanding. Thank you for breaking that down. Hannah, let's bring you into the conversation. What would you like to add to this?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I would love to look at it like a state level. So what Dr. Rector and Travana, you guys are doing amazing things in your school district. So what are we talking about when we're talking about kids not in Kansas City or Fulton? One of the really cool resources that Missouri's really poured their heart and soul into is the crisis continuum. So we look at the crisis continuum as 3 steps. So someone to talk to, someone to respond, and somewhere to go. So these services are open to youth and adults alike, don't have to be engaged in formal services, but they can always call the 988 Crisis and Suicide Hotline. So it's kind of a misnomer because the crisis is defined by the person calling. So it doesn't have to reach the level, of considering suicidal ideations or self-harm. It's just emotional distress as well. And so anyone can call, text, chat, or video phone the 988 call line and get a representative that's trained to help. Maybe it's social isolation, maybe it's loneliness, maybe it's, any kind of emotional distress that you may need someone just to talk to. And those 988 call center folks are trained to say, hey, can we talk through this on the phone? Can I get you in a good headspace, a safe place? If not, can I get someone to respond to you? Can I get a mobile crisis team on the ground to meet you where you are, to talk through what's going on, to make sure you're stable, to make sure you're safe? And then if that mobile crisis response team is not enough or needs an additional layer of support, can we get you somewhere safe? So those are our behavioral health crisis centers around the state. And so I love to highlight the crisis continuum because it is statewide and it is there, during the holidays when the schools may not be in session and able to provide those supports. Or maybe, we are snowed in for 3 weeks, like you said, Dr. Rector, and then maybe you've got my luck and then you immediately get COVID. So you've got to isolate. I can't talk to my school folks, but I could call 988 and someone could talk to me.
Absolutely. Hannah Travana, Lori Potter says this: all of these resources are Excellent. All right. Now let's go a step further, and I'm going to let's bring in Donna. And Donna, let's have you talk about what is ParentLink and what do you do?
So when we talk about, the community resources and just kind of having some of those extra supports, that's what ParentLink is. So, ParentLink is that extra support for families around the state of Missouri, and it's a free service. And so we are there to help to problem solve, to provide research-based information. We will connect our callers. We have a warm line. They can call in or text, and we can provide information. And we connect them to the supports that they actually need or that they're requesting. And so, we are there. We have master level professionals who know what to do, know how to have the conversation, know how to connect them with supports. And again, it's a live person on the other line. And so to be able to really have that conversation to get the help that is needed, that's what we do. And if you could go to the next slide, Guy.
Okay.
And so SchoolLink is actually what I just call an arm of ParentLink. And so SchoolLink is there to support our school professionals. So in addition to providing support for our families, for our children, we also want to make sure that we are there to support school professionals. And SchoolLink came about because on our warm line, we were actually receiving, several calls from school professionals, asking for advice or just kind of maybe sometimes needing an ear to listen to help them to problem solve. And so we are there for our school professionals as well. And so we will help with problem solving. Again, we can provide some of those connections. We have the vetted resources. We have connections to other community resources. And so, and there is a live person on the other line. And so, we want to be there not only for all of our families throughout the state of Missouri, but also for our school professionals in whatever capacity they're working in our school systems throughout the state.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all these resources. Actually, what I'd like to do is bring Hannah back on. And could you speak about the youth behavioral health liaisons?
Absolutely, yes. So our youth behavioral health liaisons, or YBHLs, or YIBLs, you'll hear them called all three. So those are behavioral health professionals actually embedded in our certified community behavioral health clinics across Missouri. So their whole goal is to connect the youth that needs services into that service. So we specifically ask them to be within the CCBHCs or those community clinics because they are as hooked into those resources as possible. So the idea is that anyone, so schools, law enforcement, juvenile offices, other youth serving organizations can call these YBHLs or email them and say, hey, I've got a kiddo and a family that could just use some additional supports, that could get linked into services and really benefit. And the YBHL jumps in, and it is their job to make that connection seamless, to make sure they've got a hand to hold, to make sure there's a warm handoff, because no one's going to lie. The system can get a little bit confusing. So having a YBHL there that is literally embedded within the local systems, and if they're not sure of the systems around them, they know the other YBHLs in the other areas to help connect. It's just another great way to make that connection and make sure we are supporting those youth and those students and making sure that they know that they have somewhere to turn to for help.
Excellent. Thank you for adding that. And we're going to continue with more resources. So, Katie, let's have you talk about the mental health resources.
Oh my goodness, I hardly even know where to start, Guy. There are so many resources that are available to local education agencies in the state of Missouri, and not just ones that DESE provides. But there are, within the Department of Elementary Secondary Education, there's many different offices that support well-being for different populations, right? The Office of Childhood supports those younger than age 5. There's the Office of Special Education. Within our office, the Office of College and Career Readiness, you've got folks like Jimmy, who provides a wide variety of resources through Missouri Healthy Schools as part of the school counseling and student wellness section. They, of course, also provide support and guidance for school counselors. And in the section that I work in, which is a school-based mental health section, we really focus on supporting all school staff, including our school-based mental health professionals. And we specifically focus on school social workers and school psychologists. We also provide training and technical assistance through Project Aware, which is the Advancing Wellness and Resiliency in Education grant. And our goal really is that resource alignment and awareness piece. We know there's a lot of resources, but not everybody knows about all of them. So on our website, which will be up here on the screen in a minute, you'll find information about what free training opportunities does our section offer, either on our own, or in collaboration with others, such as the comprehensive school-based mental health training for school mental health teams, youth mental health first aid. The website also includes information about any current school-based mental health related grant opportunities, links to resources that DESE has created in collaboration, such as mental health awareness curriculum, the youth suicide awareness and prevention model policy, which will have a newly revised version coming out very soon, the trauma-informed schools guidance documents, and you're also going to find links to many other resources, like some of the ones we talked about tonight, like the youth behavioral health liaisons and how they might best collaborate with schools. In the Missouri Crisis Resource Contact Directory, that's a directory where you can go find your county and easily find who that youth behavioral health liaison for your area is, as well as other resources. Really, here at DESE in our school-based mental health section, we're here to support you guys, the school professionals who support students each and every day. We'd love to answer your questions, celebrate your successes, brainstorm and problem solve with you, connect you with a colleague. So please give us a call, shoot us an email, or drop by. We have open virtual office hours every Thursday from noon to 1, and we would love to have you join. The link to that is just on the top of our website there, and we truly believe we're stronger together. So we talk about teaming like Trayvon did as well. So it's dese.mo.gov, or if you just go to dese.mo.gov, the main DESE website, scroll down just a little bit, you'll see a good link to that mental health resources for staff and students.
Katie, thank you so much for giving us all those resources. We'll have links in the replay for everyone. So if you watch the replay, we'll have that embedded in the description. Also, we'll bring in Melissa again for the final word. Melissa, what are your final thoughts on this podcast as we talked about wellness and winter?
Wow, this is a lot of pressure, Guy, in terms of trying to, and what are my final thoughts on wellness and winter? It's good. Wellness is good. But also I think the connecting point across all of these resources that we've talked about when we were talking about how schools promote wellness and how schools can continue to improve how they promote wellness, supporting families with wellness, is that kind of like Katie said, there's a lot of resources. And so when we're talking about individual people or a teacher in a classroom, a school administrator, we never want people to feel like they're alone and that they can't ask for help. And so you can ask for help if this is a crisis, if you need help right away, if you're feeling unsafe or someone else doesn't feel safe. 988, Hannah talked about it. We have our youth behavioral health liaisons, that entire crisis continuum. But also there are other folks out there too who can also help. SchoolLink and ParentLink to call for resources, looking within the building, talking to school administrators and all of the school-based mental health folks that Katie highlighted that we brought in to create this school-based mental health framework, which is really, I think the connecting point, right, is that there is somebody out there to ask for help. Let's talk about it. What is not effective is sitting by ourselves and feeling isolated and feeling like we can't do anything. We can. And again, full credit to our schools and our school communities who are doing this hard work all day, every day to help keep young people safe and help them be successful. Really appreciate everybody being here. Also, just want to give a little bit of a shout out to Daniel. It is his birthday today.
Yes.
And really appreciate him joining, of course, and everybody being here. But happy birthday, Daniel. We love you. Your district loves you. Oh, and here we go. We ready?
Melissa, did you get that at the Kentucky Derby?
Yes. Are we gonna sing?
Only you can. I'm not a singer. My wife.
You all need to unmute yourselves then.
Okay, go ahead. You can.
We're ready.
Okay.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Daniel. Happy birthday to you. Wow. That was extraordinarily difficult. Well done, everybody. I hope you feel celebrated, Daniel.
I feel very celebrated. That is the first time through an online environment that I have had multiple people sing it, and I can check that off a list now. Thank you very, very much.
That's how we're supporting your wellness, right? Is helping you check off that bucket list item there.
Yep. Oh, that was too good. Well, here's our final comment. What an amazing group of experts. Absolutely. Thank you all for sharing your knowledge and all these wonderful resources. All right, with that, Jimmy, let's bring it back, because talking about resources, talk to us about this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I second that sentiment from the person that tapped in from the Uplift Connection. Amazing group. There's a plethora of resources available. And I truly hope that every student has a Trevon Alexander Tony available and Daniel Rector in their corner, because they're in the trenches and they're doing phenomenal work on a daily basis. But mohealthyschools.com is our website, and we have a team of experts in all different areas available to help school districts to improve health and wellness for their students and staff and community. So anytime, reach out, and I'm sure you could reach out to anybody on the panel. Nobody would turn you away if you had any questions and wanted to follow up. We're all here to help students and staff and communities in Missouri.
Yeah, and with that, talk to us about our next podcast.
Yeah, definitely excited about our next podcast coming up in March. It's a Show Me Green and Sustainability podcast. We work a lot with nutrition, and we work a lot with farm to school, farm to table initiatives. And so we're going to have a lot of great information on that podcast in March.
All right, with that, I want to thank you all. What an amazing group. What an amazing night. This was so much fun. And I've never had anyone sing on any podcast I've ever hosted. So this is a first, let alone put on hats, especially from the Kentucky Derby. So anyways, thank you all for being on. And like you said, we'll have all those links embedded in the descriptions when we put out the replay very soon. But again, thank you all for joining us. So for Guy Danhoff and for this amazing team of experts, we thank you all for tuning in right here on the Missouri Healthy Schools Podcast Live. Thank you and have a great night.